We're here today with Chris LaPoint, who's Vice President of Product Management from SolarWinds. Chris, can you please tell us a little about SolarWinds and its work in the government market?
Sure. Thanks, Mike, for having me. So SolarWinds actually solves a number of common challenges that people have around IT within the public sector. So despite our somewhat strange moniker of SolarWinds, we are not a green energy company, have nothing to do with wind farms or solar energy. So we're focused on IT management and specifically in the public sector, focusing a lot of the common IT challenges that they face around things like cybersecurity, continuous monitoring, just basic network operations, as well as compliance and other initiatives that are being somewhat dictated and handed down to them by the Office of Management Budget and NIST and organizations like that.
Chris, SolarWinds recently did a survey of government officials covering information technology and automation. Can you tell us a little bit about the survey, Chris?
Sure. Yeah. So we did a broad survey of public sector IT professionals. So network engineers, network admins, system admins across both the DoD agencies, the civilian agencies, as well as state and local government to get sort of a broad perspective on how was IT automation viewed within those organizations, and were they having any success whatsoever in terms of implementing and actually getting benefit from them?
And Chris, what advice does SolarWinds have for government administrators, including state and local government administrators, based on your new IT automation survey?
So sure. So you'll have to pardon me. So we did the survey back in January, so I'll be referencing just some of the notes. But just in terms of context around what we discovered through the survey, which was really interesting, was that 84% of the survey respondents said that automation of information technology and infrastructure was a time and money saving investment for their team. So that's good. And then 67% of the respondents have seen increases in their team's productivity as a result of implementing this automation technology. So I look at that as a very positive sign, because if you think about automation technology in general, right, we're talking about mapping complex business processes and workflows, which maybe differ from organization to organization, to technology, and where those things often meet, right, it doesn't always go completely smoothly. So I look at the fact that 67% of the respondents saying they're actually getting increased productivity as a huge win. The fact that government agencies, state, local governments implementing this technology have gotten as far as they have, I think is a really good sign. The one takeaway that was really interesting was that 29% of them, when we asked them how much time it actually saved them and to characterize that time saving, they said that 29% said huge time saver. This is tremendous and it's been huge for organization. But 55% said it somewhat saved them time. And so I have some interesting theories on why this is based upon the public sector customers that we talk to on a daily basis here at SolarWinds. So number one, I think that and this is sort of my metaphor, so excuse me if it doesn't make any sense, but to keep sight of the forest, right? To know that it exists, but don't lose focus on the trees. Because there's the metaphor, don't lose sight of the forest for the trees. And I think of it sort of the opposite way, because oftentimes you find, whether you're talking about state and local government or you're talking about large government agencies, is they get caught up in this huge project, right, that they're trying to implement. And so while they're running through the forest, imagining its grandeur and the expanse of the forest, they're running and they run directly right into a tree because they've forgotten about the trees. So I think that it requires a more pragmatic approach. So to get the users that are getting sort of this, it somewhat saved us time, into it's a huge time saver, I think it comes back to looking at the pragmatic problems that they need to solve on a daily basis and then figuring out how to map their larger sort of IT automation projects to those tactical issues. So solving for the problems that are directly in front of them, while still being aware that what we're trying to get to is sort of this end goal. And I know that sounds very intuitive and sort of common sense, but sometimes I think that you do sort of lose sight of sort of the immediate benefits that you could get with technology while you're trying to implement the grand vision.
And Chris, I saw in the survey results, budgets are a hurdle for a good percentage of government administrators who responded. I'm wondering in 2014, do we see any relief coming to governments in their budgets? Maybe if you can promise cost savings, which is a secret, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wish I could promise budget windfalls for everybody. Certainly the fallout from the sequester of 2013 wasn't good for any of the public sector customers that we deal with, and that certainly created budget issues for them. I think we're starting to see them come out of that, but still the core issue of just resource and budget constrained organizations within the public sector continues to exist regardless of what purse strings are now open or not open. And certainly IT automation technology can help with that. One of the interesting things that we found, specifically related to state and local government respondents to our survey, was that a large percentage of them actually ranked training as the major obstacle, more so than budget, which was interesting. And that was a difference from federal, the DoD and its affiliate agencies versus state and local government. And my belief, based upon talking with our customers, is that the reason why training is so difficult is that if you think about the IT environment that these organizations live in, number one, you're already overburdened with keep the network up and running, make sure email doesn't go down, just the basic things. Then you're saying that, well, you're not going to get any more people to help you. And then now new technologies and new things are being thrown at you. I think that are being thrown at you. For instance, BYOD, right? Bring your own device to work sounds great, but as more people bring in smartphones and tablets, this is just something that's happening to IT teams, right? And so they're already under-resourced, and now their bosses are telling them, well, we've got to do something about this because it's going to happen whether we want to address it or not. So what are we doing to plan for this? And so these are the things that they're struggling with. The other major factor, I think, just in terms of a more macro level industry view, is server virtualization has become virtually mainstream over the last 3 to 5 years. And now network virtualization is starting to pick up steam. And my belief, and SolarWinds' belief, is that it will move faster than server virtualization did in terms of becoming mainstream, simply because people understand sort of the cost benefit around virtualization. It's no longer this strange sort of Matrix-like thing that, for those who've seen the Matrix movies, it's no longer this reality within a reality within a reality kind of thing. It is real, and it is happening. And so how do they deal with this? So if you're a network engineer or you're a system administrator and your life was previously focused on maintaining things in the physical world, right, in terms of applications running on physical servers and infrastructure, and now you're having to think about virtual, for a lot of engineers, this is kind of blowing their minds, right? It's how do I make sure that, one, my skill sets are sort of being maintained and expanding as my problem domain is expanding, but then two, how does the flavor of the problems I'm going to have to solve, how does that change, right? So if I'm now trying to troubleshoot not just the physical network infrastructure as a network engineer, but also the virtual network infrastructure as the virtualization guys are deploying virtual routers, switches, firewalls, load balancers, what does that mean? Whose fault it is? Whose fault is it when one of those goes down? Is it mine? Maybe I should care about that because that sort of feels like I'm losing part of my my turf. And so is that a good or bad thing for me? So I think that's why training is such an important part of what the public sector is struggling with, especially in state and local government, where they're potentially even more resource and budget constrained, is combating that. And I think that training is certainly one part of it, and maintain training. But I think that they're going to have to look at tools that help them solve those connected problems together. So what is the virtual flavor of network troubleshooting that I was used to? And what are the tools that can present that to me in a way where I don't have to necessarily learn what network virtualization is all about. I can just look at it in the same way I was troubleshooting the physical environment, and just sort of go on my merry way. And that's really what we're trying to do as SolarWinds is provide them the aha, moments in terms of, wow, I didn't realize it could be this simple and this easy. And really that's my team's job as product managers is to figure out what those problems and use cases are.
Chris, does SolarWinds have a training component in its government business, or do you just steer folks to some of the consultants out there, some of the systems integrators?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually have a number of system integrators that we partner with, and resellers and VARs within the federal government space, especially as it relates to just getting the thing through all of the contract and procurement process, but then also providing the help that they need to get up and running. The way that we handle training, though, I think is unique to SolarWinds in that we don't believe it's something that, although many of our partners offer paid training, we believe it isn't something that customers should have to pay for. We believe that there's a different approach to training that can be taken in terms of leveraging the community. So we have a community called THWACK, THWACK, not the whack or anything like that. That might get you somewhere else that you don't want to be. And thwack.com is our community, and it has over 130,000 network engineers, networking professionals, system engineers that are available to answer questions, not only about our technology, but just technology in general. I mean, they're just really smart and have been in the industry for a while, and so they can answer some of those questions. For instance, like I was just describing, what does it mean for me to be a network engineer in the virtual world, and things like that. So, and then thirdly, we've provided recently, we actually did an announcement about our commitment to deliver the fundamental training that customers need to get our products configured and customized in the way that they need, just as part of their maintenance. So if you pay maintenance at SolarWinds, then you can sign up for these classes and just get access to training without having to pay for anything additional.
Sounds like a great solution, Chris. I sense the passion you have for the government marketplace, and I'm wondering, what is your background? Did it include any work in government or GSA, state, local governments?
So it's a much longer story than Mike. I'm afraid we'll have time to talk about here. But so when I was, my dad worked for, was a civilian working for the U.S. government out of White Sands Missile Range in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and that's actually where I'm from. But when I was 10, he came to me and my sister and asked us if we wanted to move to an island between Hawaii and Australia called Kwajalein in the Marshall Islands, which is actually a U.S. Army missile testing range and tracking base. And I lived there from the time I was 10 till I was 18. And so I got some interesting insight into, the workings of government installations and just government projects from my dad. And probably the most interesting and crazy thing about my background is, one of the favorite pastimes on the island was to go out at 4 o'clock in the morning, and there would be a news blotter that would tell you that dummy warheads were coming into the lagoon. And so you actually watch the streaks of light come in the morning and watch that if you wanted to. And that was just sort of day in the life on the island that I lived on. And of course, I've definitely been involved in both SolarWinds and other companies in selling to government and just public sector organizations. So definitely understand their pains.
Well, Chris LaPoint from SolarWinds, this has been a fascinating story, and Hope to post this item on our GPN website very soon. And Government Product News has a couple of times a year IT sections within the magazine, and hope we can feature some of SolarWinds products and services in the future. And again, thanks for your time today, Chris LaPoint.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Mike.